Good morning. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Okay, let's wait for the stream to catch up. Cheers. Buen provecho. Another beautiful week. We have audio. Looks good. Okay. How are y'all doing? Where am I? Today is another glorious Friday. It flies by. On Monday, it seems like you're climbing a mountain, and Friday appears all of a sudden and you're done. So let's see what happened this week. Say hello to my cat. She's a character. Yeah. She's just checking on me from the second floor. What are you doing? Anyway, how's it going? What are you working on? What projects are you enjoying at the moment? What interesting observations are you having with Business Central? I have had many, like every other week, some more than others. This one was a busy one. And just checking my lighting. It's a little intense here. So, if you did not know, this live stream is simulcast and syndicated globally as an audio-only podcast. So if you enjoy listening to podcasts like I do when doing laundry, washing the car, doing dishes, brushing your teeth, I don't know, taking a walk in the park, you can tune in to this podcast and not have to look at me. You can just listen to me if you can tolerate that. And the podcast is produced and published and syndicated by none other than Mauricio in Berlin, El Salvador. So thank you, Mauricio, for taking care of that for me. If you have been listening to the podcast, you'll know it was highly irregular, with me catching up on 4 or 5 episodes at a time every other month. Mauricio's made that much more regular, and he tries to do a couple a week or couple every other week so that it is not too far behind. And this is the list of the many podcast services where you can find my podcast. And I use Buzzsprout, and it automatically publishes on all these platforms. So if you don't have it on your platform, let me know. I'll see if we can find it. But you can also just go to podcast.steveendo.com and listen to it there. Back episodes as well. So the weekend, el fin de semana, I finally got around to a chore that has been staring at me for many months. And you'll be familiar with this, I'm sure, where you buy something to fix something or do a project or whatever, and it sits in the box for many, many, many months. That is me in many forms, but in this case, it had to do with the security cameras, IP surveillance cameras, and I am replacing all of the cameras around my house, going from these prosumer consumer. I had Dahua and Hikvision cameras running on power over Ethernet to a Blue Iris server. It was kind of a hassle to maintain, so I scrapped that server entirely and replaced it all with a Ubiquiti UniFi Protect NVR with Ubiquiti cameras. And while that was a great upgrade, the one challenge, of course, is going around and replacing all the cameras. And it's not really hard. It's just kind of a hassle and, it's one more thing to deal with. So I'd done most of them. I had 2 cameras left. I finally got around to replacing them. This was a Hikvision turret cam. I only had one of them on the side of the house. So I finally got out the ladder and replaced that bad boy. And you see the old ring from the silicone is that Hikvision. You see how much smaller the Ubiquiti cameras are, significantly smaller, much simpler, much more compact, actually easier to mount. You don't need to have the base conduit box and gaskets to seal it. But yeah, so it wasn't that bad. Took maybe 15 minutes to replace it, and then I did another one on the other side of the house. So it's just more the anticipation is worse than anything else. And now I have a full array of cameras. Yes, it is absolute overkill. I do live in Los Angeles County, so there is a practical need for having some cameras around the house, given the urban challenges that do exist here. So yeah, I now have all 10 cameras set up, and I didn't start with 10. It's just I had some Wi-Fi access points outside that I no longer needed because I'd upgraded those to more powerful units and just had the cable sitting there. So I said, oh, let's put an extra camera here. And now, I'm a nerd, so there we go. So I now have 10 cameras running on Ubiquiti UniFi NVR. And I made the mistake of going with 4 terabyte hard drives with 12 terabytes of total capacity. I should have just gone larger, but drives were kind of expensive at the time. So currently I need to check now that I've added the additional cameras with the 10 cameras. At the time, it said 28 days of storage capacity. I suspect that's going to go down to 26, 25, depending on the recording setting. So that's usually more than enough. I don't think I've ever had to go back more than a day or two. So yeah, there we go. That project was finally completed this weekend, and I don't think I need any other changes or upgrades. So should be good for a while unless I want to upgrade the hard drives. And weekly projects. Our project with Continia document capture continues. We still have a few things to figure out and learn. It is going well. And let me just check my mic volume. It looks a little low. And so Ronald continues to work on Continia. VPN risk. I highly recommend migrating to VPN as a service. I don't even recall if I've covered that last week already. My cybersecurity intern and I learned about Entra conditional access. So that was good to finally cross that off the list in terms of basic understanding, an initial policy put in place for our multinational enterprise. We had an 18-month BC sales process that was finally progressed. It is crazy. I went and looked back 18 months since we started to talk to this customer, and they're finally starting the process. Fingers crossed. BC telemetry, learned a little bit more about that and got some scripts set up to help us use that a little more effectively. Had a fun experience testing pre-release AppSource apps. No, I didn't know this detail, and no, I didn't read that page on Microsoft Docs because we've never had to do this before. So learned something there. And digging into Microsoft 365 Defender. I don't even remember what the real name is. It's something blah, 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 Microsoft Office Defender 365 for Business something. So we're learning about that. And by that, I mean, how does it improve the security around email, Microsoft 365 email? That's what I'm interested in. And Monday, lunes. Maybe I did. Okay. Monday, lunes, over the weekend, there was a SonicWall VPN 0 day. And by that, I mean there was yet another SonicWall VPN 0 day. This has to be at least the fifth 0 day that has resulted in full compromise, full bypass of all security measures. They believe it is bypassing authentication, bypassing multi-factor authentication, bypassing hardware, device unique IDs, basically just bypassing the authentication stack completely. So at this point, my understanding is that SonicWall is saying, turn off VPN, disconnect your device, do not use any SonicWall VPN, whether that's the appliance or the SSL VPN built into their firewalls. Stop using it. It is no longer secure. And my impression is they're kind of giving up. And un momento. Not necessarily their fault. They're relying upon an open source stack for that VPN access. And when you glue all those pieces together, it's just really difficult to keep it secure. They have tried. They have had numerous releases, numerous hot fixes, numerous 0 day warnings. But if you have a VPN on your corporate network, close the port, turn it off, find a different solution. If you have a VPN service running on your firewall or VPN appliance, literally unplug it from your network and turn it off, power it down. It is just a neon sign of security vulnerabilities. So then on, let's see, what is this? I think that's something else. Okay. Then on Monday, we had a call to go through some initial discussions with a customer regarding Continia document capture. Ronald and I drafted some procedures and project plans for implementing Continia. I don't know if Continia has them. We didn't receive them. I think they have an Excel spreadsheet, but it's just kind of like a generic Excel spreadsheet for all their product offerings. So I wanted a checklist. What do you do first before you even start? What are the prerequisites? Then what do you need from the customer? And then what do you start with configuration? So we started with a draft of that. It's by no means complete, but we had a call with the customer and learned a lot about their process, a lot of surprising revelations in that call, like we planned on having workflow approval for their AP invoices. And they said, no, why would we need that? And we asked, well, what do you do currently? And they said, we just get emails from our managers around the country. And they say, hey, here's an invoice, pay it. We're like, okay. And they said, why change it? It's simple, works. I'm like, okay. It works until you have a business email compromise where someone submits a fraudulent invoice that is spoofed by this manager of a department, and you pay a $150,000 invoice. They may have other internal controls, but you could probably get a couple $1,000s through before anyone notices. So that's why you'd want to do workflow approval. And next up, BC Telemetry. This is the customer that's been having performance issues and BC performance issues. And so I reviewed some of the telemetry, got a little oriented, and started to narrow down the culprits, or at least the events that appear to be relating to the issues that they are having. More on that later. And as I mentioned, VPN, shut it down. Do not have any VPN ports open. Do not have any ports open on your firewall or your corporate network. You are just begging to be compromised. So I highly recommend shutting down all those ports. And you might legitimately ask, well, how do we have remote access? How do we have access to some internal servers or resources or whatever we need? I would highly recommend looking into VPN as a service. And it was kind of an abstract concept for me before, but now I've used it for quite a while. I started by using Tailscale because I couldn't find any viable alternatives at the time, over a year ago. Tailscale, they have a free, I don't know if it's open source, but it's a free service. It is not perfect by any means. You got to be careful. I would not recommend this for large organizations or limited IT resources. I consider it quite complex to configure properly, very easy to make a mistake in the configuration file. But if it's just one or two people, you need access to a resource, it is a convenient option. You run an agent on a machine, it connects to their network, and then you connect remotely and it matchmakes you. It does the matchmaker for you. Now, since then, I have implemented SonicWall Cloud Secure Edge. Not an endorsement, simply because I run SonicWall. They purchased Banyan Security. They acquired Banyan Security and rolled it into their tech stack. Didn't exist over a year ago, so it's a relatively recent acquisition and rollout. So I now use SonicWall Cloud Secure Edge. It connects into the Banyan Security Cloud Secure network and gives me access to my firewall and my internal corporate network, and also to the internet through, I believe they use Google Cloud. So that's the solution I've gone with. I don't yet know the pricing, trying to get that sorted out, but it seems to work very well. It's actually much easier, faster, simpler than any VPN client I've used overall, and it can authenticate via SAML with your Entra ID or Microsoft 365 login. So I just use my same Microsoft login that I use for email, SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever, and that authenticates with Cloud Secure Edge. So single sign-on, pretty nice. Now, I tried to find others via Perplexity search and web search, and I haven't validated any of these, but these come up as potential candidates, alternatives, if you're not into SonicWall or Tailscale. Checkpoint Harmony SASE, I don't know what SASE stands for. NordLayer, I guess that's offering from NordVPN that is more of the business offering that makes it a VPN as a service. Proton VPN as a service, to my surprise, I have Proton VPN, but not for business. Apparently, Proton VPN for business gives you the network agent to connect to your LAN. So that's an option potential as well. Perimeter 81, never heard of it. TwinGate ZTNA, Zero Trust Network Access, and uTunnel Secure Access. So I don't know anything about those. Those are just names that popped up in a search. So those may be alternatives, but these are slowly being released as alternatives to traditional VPN. I highly recommend them as opposed to an on-prem VPN appliance or server. Shut the ports down now. Tuesday, martes. I've talked about the work that we do for other organizations. We work with partners. We work with BC customers. We work with BC partners. Hola, Senor Johnston. Buenos dias. Cheers. We work with customers, partners, and we work with ISVs to help implement and support their product, and for both partners and customers directly. So we work with just about everyone. So now on Tuesday, we started a new project where we are helping a Business Central software development company. They make apps and software, and we are helping. They're super busy, and so they needed a couple of things taken care of, like feature requests, customizations that are not like they're slammed with their core roadmap. So we're trying to help them on a few ancillary features. So we had a nice call to kick off the project to do some BC development subcontracting. So it's a challenge, right? It's not just a PTE that we're adopting and modifying. We have a whole like ISV solution that we have to learn, navigate, do code review, understand the architecture, coding practices. They have a very specific way of doing things. It's like, okay, we need to follow those practices. And, it's a much higher bar than just a simple PT of 1, 2, 5, 10 pages. And so we're starting that process, learning it, and some really challenging requirements there. And of course, the things that we do, these minor enhancements, cannot break anything in their much, much larger ecosystem. So very interesting. We're learning a lot. We're treading gingerly because we're a little nervous, like, okay, we don't want to do anything wrong or break anything, but we're trying to be as conscientious as possible. So yeah, that'll be an interesting, fun project, and we will definitely learn stuff. And for the 45th time, I've said it numerous times by now, on-prem is dead. Nothing to do with on-prem, really, but it is dead. The death knell. And I'm sorry. I had a call with a Dynamics GP customer. They were just so lost, and I don't know if they've reached out for help, but they seemed to think they knew what was going on. And it was just abundantly clear that they didn't. And I'm not going to argue with them. I'm supporting an ISV solution. I'm not going to lecture them on how to run their on-prem ERP system, but they say, Steve, why doesn't your application work? And we look at the logs and I see this. Transaction process ID was deadlocked on lock resources with another process and has been chosen as the deadlock victim. And I'm like, it's a deadlock. My app was the victim. Go find the perpetrator of this crime and solve the problem. And I said, I've worked with Dynamics GP for over 20 years, and I can absolutely tell you with 100% confidence that if you are getting deadlocks, it is not coming from core GP. GP is designed and architected in a suboptimal manner, as SQL experts will tell you, to specifically avoid and eliminate the chance of a deadlock. It just can't do it. And I've processed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of transactions on Dynamics GP, vanilla Dynamics GP, and it will run flawlessly. As soon as you start screwing around with bad queries, lock tables, lock records, like full table scans of the GL table, this is what will happen. And what does the IT manager do? He says, well, I'm looking at the server now and it's got enough memory, so that can't, it's not our fault. He believes that deadlocks have something to do with SQL Server memory and CPU utilization. Well, the CPU isn't busy. It's not our fault. It's not our server. It can't be us. It must be your program. And I said, I cannot possibly convey and educate such a person who believes that SQL Server CPU utilization has anything to do with a deadlock. I just give up. So, and on top of this, their accounting staff, they claim they've had significant turnover. They have no one who understands their ERP system anymore due to this turnover. So they hired someone who claimed he had previously worked with SAP, but it's not much help with GP, didn't know how to use the accounting system, didn't know how to navigate to any of the windows, didn't know how to look up a transaction, didn't know how to view vendor activity, didn't know how to see whether any of this was successful or not. Not his fault. He's only been there a week. They just don't have the capacity to maintain this on-prem system. Now, would they have any better luck with Business Central? Who knows? But at least they would not have things like SQL deadlocks due to rogue queries and customizations of their system in theory, right? I'm sure you could do some bad things in BC, but anyway, that's my rant. Moving on, Entra, conditional access. Finally, think we have a clue on how this works. Now, those of you who know conditional access, you'll probably say it's not that big of a deal, but we hadn't used it. We didn't know how to configure it. So we just started from scratch. And by we, I mean my cybersecurity intern who had to figure this out. So her task was to VPN to another country. In this case, she chose Japan because she'd been to Japan. And she was VPN'd into Japan. And her job was to create a conditional access policy to block her login from Japan. And after a couple attempts, some learning, trial and error, we figured it out. And she set up a conditional access policy to only allow access from the countries from which our multinational enterprise operates. So she applied that and she got a successful, actually, let's see if I can show this. I'm covering it up. She successfully blocked her login from Shinagawa-ku, Tokyo, Japan. So that was a success. So that was pretty cool. So now we're moving on to the Microsoft 365 Defender for email or whatever it's called. So that's up next on our hit list for security. And totally random topic that I have been just meaning to summarize and get better feel for. Prior to 2020, I had a certain distribution of customer payments, and my impression, my intuition is that we had a high number of checks. I'm guessing 30, 40, 50% checks. When 2020 came around and we were all trapped in our cubicles or our boxes for COVID, people couldn't go to the office to do check runs. So the entire world of the payables departments changed. And as a result, companies dramatically reduced their use of checks. And here is some evidence of that. I went back for the last 8 months or so and tallied up what the distribution of payment methods were for hundreds of payments. And 78% are now paying via credit card. We give the option to pay for annual ISV subscriptions via credit card with no additional fees. So we absorb the cost of the fees. And 78% of customers choose to pay by credit card. 13% choose to pay by EFT, and that is a mix of online bank transfer payment through our online payment portal, where they enter their bank account and submit it for a bank transfer, and traditional EFT, where they have their ERP system in generating the ACH file to send to their bank. So that's a combined 13%. And checks are still present around 8% roughly, and we have 1% wire. It's negligible, and it's only for non-US customers, primarily Central and South American customers, a handful that we have. So there's the breakdown. I thought credit card would be a little bit higher, but it turns out that EFT is still fairly popular, and I think we're roughly 9% traditional EFT, and the remaining 4% of that is through the payment portal. So to my surprise, customers are still utilizing that. I am not a fan of EFT personally on the cash receipt side. It's kind of a hassle for me to enter and reconcile because when it's traditional, because our payment portal does our cash receipt payment application and I don't have to do anything. So I very much prefer the payment portal option. So that's what we'll be adopting on the Business Central side as well. So that's just a random trivia. Okay, AI in ERP. A while back, or for a while now, I've been seeing these NetSuite, Oracle NetSuite ads, and they now say that NetSuite is the #1 AI cloud ERP, numero uno in AI. Okay, I guess I'm #1 in Business Central live streaming globally. How's that? A meaningless declaration, but it says, from being first in the cloud to driving AI innovation, we're proud to give our customers the very best. So it's marketing, but I saw it. And then I use QuickBooks Online, so I am being battered with QuickBooks AI, and they now offer Intuit AI agents, customer agent, payments agent, accounting agent, finance agent. And you may have heard that Business Central is trying to be all AI. And I've seen these little things that pop up in the top corner of Business Central. That's supposed to be a purchasing or sales agent. I haven't touched them or used them because my customers can barely pay invoices and do bank recs. So I noticed these videos on YouTube. They popped up in my feed and it says Copilot managing maintenance intake by Zig. No idea what that means. Whatever. Copilot completing timesheets by Prime Global. Okay. Copilot managing complaints by Trimit. So they're trying to promote, I guess, these third parties or ISVs or consulting firms who have supposedly adopted or incorporated Copilot into their solutions to help automate some process or task. So my question to you, all 14 of you, is how are you using AI in BC? Are you using any native AI features directly in Business Central? Or are you incorporating Copilot into a PTE, an AppSource app, your code in order to automate a process? Because it seems the challenge is identifying the process where Copilot could help. Excuse me. And one of the places I believe where Business Central has incorporated Copilot, and I use the quotation marks heavily there, is in BankRec, and the initial iteration was less than useful. So it was my understanding was it was an all or nothing BankRec assistant. So if you had matched half of the items in your BankRec and you clicked on, yeah, Copilot, match the rest, it would wipe everything out and try to rematch the entire month. Like, not very helpful for us and our customers. And sometimes it would do a good job, sometimes it wouldn't. It would go off the rails and you got to fix what it couldn't do. So our team did not recommend that initial iteration of the Copilot BankRec. But let me know, what are we missing? A new side quest for me, power bill. I live in Los Angeles, and we happen to have one of the highest power rates in the United States. Perhaps Hawaii is slightly more expensive, but I think my power rate for summer is 25 cents per kilowatt hour during normal hours. That's called off-peak. During on-peak, between the hours of 4 and 9 p.m., it is a whopping 55 cents per kilowatt hour. As a result, my power bill last month was $484. And so I said, whoa, that's a bit much. So I took a look at it, and the example usages on heavy days, July 4th, we're obviously home on July 4th, a holiday, 53 kilowatt hours. We were having a 4th of July party. We had people over, cooking, air conditioner, whole bit. So that was peak usage, 53 kilowatt hours for $16.69 for that day approximately. July 25th, a more conventional day, 32 kilowatt hours for almost $18 in electrical usage. So my challenge was, could I reduce that? What could I do to reduce that? And turns out I made a few adjustments to things consuming electricity. And so far, halfway through the month, projected bill of $368. So over $100 reduction due to some timing adjustments of things, turning off some automated processes, turning off servers that I had running for my Docker and Hyper-V servers and my data storage, my Synology NAS. So interesting that I could reduce $120 approximately off of my power bill. And now some example days are July 25th down to 32 kilowatt hours for $10. And so that's roughly, that should be a similar price. So not sure if I did the math wrong there, but that looks the same as July 25th. Oh, it is the same. So I made a mistake there. Lo siento. But August 4th, we're down to $11 due to, yeah, my math is wrong there on the dollar amount. But anyway, projected bill now says $368. So we'll see where that goes. There's a downside to this, and that is that when I turn off the air conditioning in my office, last night it got to 80, 81 degrees in the evening, and we're at 50 to 70% humidity here in Los Angeles. My computer here that I'm using overheated to the point where it blue screened. And yes, it blue screened repeatedly until I figured out what was going on, opened it up, checked the temperature, checked the fan speeds, and that is the one downside. And I'm very familiar with this from El Salvador. My threshold is roughly 80 degrees. If you have 80 degrees with any semblance of humidity, 40% or more, if you do not have good constant airflow, you will get component failures, overheat, shutdowns, thermal issues with computers. So surprising that that is the threshold, but that has been my experience consistently. So Wednesday, we had the resumption of the 18-month lead time project with this BC prospect who uses Salesforce. And they have a fairly complex business process data flow integrations because they use Salesforce. And like many Salesforce customers, they were able to create custom anything in Salesforce, resulting in a bit of a mess with their business processes. They have very unique business, very kind of unusual flows of data, very unusual inventory and transactions that they process. So we initially had a call with them in February of 2024. I had to go look it up in my notes. February 2024, 18 months ago. We then had subsequent discovery calls, like hours and hours of discovery calls just to figure out how their business works, where the data was flowing. So we spent weeks on that, documenting their requirements, and just there's so much we could not comprehend and remember all the details. It was just impossible. Even if we wrote it down, like, oh, okay, hello, NavNab. Using AI Builder in Power Automate. Interesting. So that is, I'll call that Business Central adjacent. Interesting. I'll have Ronald look into that. AI Builder in Power Automate, using a lot of other AI stack in other areas, but not BC related. Yes, like we're using Cursor and Copilot for AL development, VS Code. Definite use cases there. BC related, not sure. Even if we could develop it, I'm not sure if our customers could adopt it. So thanks for the feedback. That's interesting. So back to our epic prospect journey. June 2024, we had discovery calls with them to document their requirements. So we could simply scope and create a proposal. And even looking back at our notes, we could barely remember and understand. We had questions. It was just too much to put down on paper, like a lot going on. November, we finally delivered the statement of work, and it was just a swag, a guess, just our best attempt to document and estimate the approximate scope. Well, August 2025, they finally say, okay, let's get this started. We are now having to have rediscovery calls to go over all the requirements, the proposal and everything. And guess what? Entire swaths have changed. We're just hacking away at our proposal, the requirements, the estimate, the budgets left and right. We're just like, okay, YOLO, cut it, change it, whatever, like fine. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but they're like, oh yeah, all those requirements are on that 30-party system. Let's change it. Let's not integrate with that system. Let's go through Salesforce instead. Like, I don't know. It is a moving target. Like the target is literally running away from us and zigzagging to avoid being captured, right? So we have had 6 people on the call. Even with 6 people, the customer is like, wait, How do we do that? What system are we using that? Can we do cash receipts and apply on that system? Or do we need to do it in BC? Like, even the customer doesn't know. And maybe this is a red flag, but hey, you only live once, right? So this is going to be a 400 to 500 hour project, I think is where we're at, something like that. It's pretty significant. It may be less due to these new changes that we're just discovering, but it's going to be an interesting journey, shall we say. And we've been working on a new AppSource app for months. It's very complex. And due to the complexity and the long dev time and us trying to figure things out and prototype and get requirements and work through issues, we have not packaged this up as an AppSource app yet, right? We're just getting started. Like, what's the point in pushing it to AppSource? It wouldn't be viable. So we have been developing it as an AppSource app, but pushing it from VS Code to a sandbox for testing and review. Well, I'm realizing, apparently haven't done this before. And we have done PTEs, we've done dev scope publishing for PTs on our local sandboxes, and then we usually just build the PT and publish on the customer sandbox for testing, right? Pretty conventional. Well, I am learning we apparently haven't had a long-term testing and troubleshooting or testing and debugging process for an app where we're publishing in dev scope. So I go to have a call with the customer. I go to log into Business Central. All of my shortcuts are gone. And I'm like, what? What happened? I search for the menus, the pages, everything. Nothing. The PTE is not present, or the AppSource app is not present at all. It got uninstalled. I was like, whoa, there must have been an upgrade from 25.5 to 26.2. So that's what I thought. I was like, okay, there was a major version upgrade or even a minor upgrade, uninstalled it. Okay, I've heard of that concept. So I reinstalled, republished, had my calls, had to reschedule the call. I go to have another call with a customer. During the call, I open up BC. Once again, my shortcuts are gone. It's like, you've got to be kidding me. It happened again. Well, I had screenshots of the prior version, and so I looked at the version now. It's still 26.2. 26.2 last time I had it, 26.2 now. There has not been a major or even a minor update. There has only been the hotfix last 5 digits that were updated. Well, little did I know that causes an automatic uninstall of a dev scope extension. So if you were testing an AppSource app or even a PTE, if you publish to a sandbox from VS Code and dev scope, I'll call it, it will immediately get uninstalled if any hotfix or version has been applied. And I don't think I think I have this on Thursday because I finally figured it out on Thursday. But yes, heads up on that. And we're trying to figure out how do we deal with it. We're at the point where we're almost ready to go to AppSource, so we'll just deal with it. But in the meantime, my developer normally publishes, but I set up my dev server to be able to republish the app as well. So a bit of a hassle. We tackled the issue of sending telemetry to a support ticket. So I've got BC telemetry. I've found the symptoms, found the potential issues, but it's not presentable or easily conveyable to a support ticket. So how do you get that BC telemetry data out into a file format, a screenshot, whatever, to send to support? So I had to work on that. So in order to do that, I don't have a great way. I was thinking Power BI, but that's quite a bit of a hassle. So this is what we came up with. So this is my KQL query. I did traces where user ID in, and I'm only selecting the user IDs that have reported very specific errors, where timestamp between 1 day as the date range, where severity level is greater than 1. That was our filter, and that gave us exactly what we needed, captured essentially the string of problems that the users reported. In order to make it more presentable for a support ticket, we use the project keyword, project like to project the verb. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. It's a very odd keyword. So I'll say project, whatever. So we said timestamp, message, severity level, tenant ID, etc. And I only listed the handful of fields that we thought would be relevant to the support ticket. And let's see, it's maybe a dozen more, 12 to 15 fields. And turns out when you filter it down to just those fields, it's fairly manageable. And you can then export it to Excel, do a live refresh of that, and send it off. So that's what we're trying. And I sorted by timestamp ascending. So we have submitted that to the ISV. We had signals that indicated there were performance issues in Core BC, but we also had errors related to an ISV solution. If we submit this to Microsoft, I'm assuming they're just going to blame the ISV. So we're starting with the ISV, talking to them first, asking them why their queries are timing out, their AL and SQL queries are timing out after 30 seconds consistently. So we're going to start with them and see what happens. So that was our submission. This is what it looks like in the KQL App Insights query window. And then this is what we submitted for our support ticket. And it's basically errors around financial reporting. Error dialogues, connection timeout, operation exceeded on AL method, operation exceeded time threshold on SQL query, and we had database lock timeouts. So we'll see what happens there. Upcoming events, próximos eventos. We have Summit NA October 20th through the 23rd in Orlando, and summitnna.com. Directions EMEA, November 4th through 6th in Poland at directionsforpartners.com. And depending on where you are coming from, I recommend that you triple check the visa and travel requirements for Poland. I have seen a rumor that Poland is one of a few countries that has increased requirements or restrictions for entry. And I don't understand the details, but people who used to have an easy option to get a visa and go into Poland, apparently that is not possible for them anymore, depending on what country they're from. So you want to double check Poland's visa requirements and triple check that you can travel to Poland without issue. Apparently, in some cases, it's not widely documented, but inquiries resulted in people being told that they would not be able to get into Poland. I'm not sure why or what the background is, but that is apparently they have new travel restrictions. So definitely check that out before you book your tickets. And on Thursday, Jueves, we had yet another call for the BC Salesforce integration project. We had the project review call for continued document capture with the customer. And we had a call yesterday with Berlin and Mauricio, who is going to help us with website migration and maintenance. I do not want to deal with website updates, so Mauricio is going to help us there. And that was when I learned the reason yesterday for our AppSource apps being in dev mode, being uninstalled. And someone pointed me to this article. It is on MS Learn, so it is documented. I just wasn't aware of this particular thing because we've never done it before. Apps that are published to a sandbox from the development environment or created using Designer are published within the scope of the service node that hosts the environment. When the sandbox is upgraded, these apps are removed because the environment is moved to another node that is running a new version. So rather than have the customer's environment running with this service node and upgrade it, apparently they just switch you to a new node. Kind of makes sense. It's faster. So very interesting. So it says, however, the data of the app is not removed because that's still in your customer tenant or your sandbox tenant. So you only have to republish and install the app to make it available on that service node. I get it. We've just never done this before. So when it uninstalled, I assume it was a minor or major. Now we're realizing any update will wipe this out. It's like, oh, come on. So I'm not the only one who is struggling with this and fighting it, but yeah, there you go. That's the lesson. And NavNav agrees NEPT and DevScope will be uninstalled whenever Microsoft upgrades anything. Yes, can confirm. Okay. DynamicsCon Regionals coming up in Denver, August 21st, Dublin, Ohio, August 26th and 27th, Copenhagen, September 4th, and Dallas, September 17th. Always double check your dates for these to confirm the city, location, and the dates. They do occasionally change. Friday, Viernes, that would be today, I suppose. And it looks like, let's see, AppSource app testing and review. Oh, okay. I must have a call with the customer to review the AppSource app. Yes, the live stream does have latency, 30 seconds to a minute. So lo siento on that. So no worries. AppSource app testing review call today. Hopefully it is still published and we didn't have a hotfix overnight, but I need to double check. And what else do I have today? I don't know. I'm going to try to look at the Microsoft 365 Defender to see what the options and features are around email security. So that's what I'm going to do. Going to chat with my cybersecurity intern. And Summit NA Roadshows. Madison, Wisconsin, August 12th, Nashville, Tennessee, August 14th, Charlotte in September 9th, Houston, December 9th, Fort Lauderdale, December 11th. Once again, double check those dates. And excellent update where we have all BC all the time. We have Ms. Jocelyn doing RDLC report layouts, and she is resuming her learning of the Shopify BC integration connector, whatever. And then David is going full steam on configuration packages, report layouts, data migration, data loads for a customer. And that is involving thousands and thousands of records, re-imports, etc. And there were a few things he discovered, can't remember off the top of my head, but he's learning some quirks and tricks in configuration packages. And Ronald continues with Continua document capture, becoming an expert in that after testing hundreds and hundreds of times. And Franklin is resuming his work in what we are calling the tenant admin dashboard. And this is going to be our internal app in Business Central that we can all use to pull up one of our customers and essentially a BC admin center, but in our Business Central dashboard page. So it'll be one dashboard page, have all of our customers. One click shows the entire Business Central admin center essentially on a single page. Tenant information, environment information, upgrade information, next version, scheduled dates, capacity, apps, upgrade options, you name it, all on one page in Business Central, so that we do not have to ask Tanya or Alyssa to log in through Partner Portal, Admin Center, 17 clicks later, find what we're looking for. We're going to empower all of our consultants in order to improve our support and customer service. So that is going very well. Franklin is learning as he goes, so it's a pretty cool solution. Excellence update. This is for ERP Center of Excellence. We are starting the discussions and planning for what we're calling Wave 2, for lack of a better term. So, as you may know, I've been doing this for 2 years, and I got pretty lucky in that when I first started this 1 year ago, started the actual BC training, I met Jocelyn and David, who already spoke English and who had already worked in a call center, and were able to start learning Business Central. And so after working with them last June 2024, after a couple months of training on Business Central, they were brought on as full-time interns with ERP Center of Excellence. So that kind of jump-started the process, and they were starting essentially in what would be year 3 of my plan. They were able to kind of skip past year 1 and 2. And now, with the addition of Ronald and Franklin, who also spoke English, we now have four full-time interns. Oh, okay. So Ted has a question. What are the security concerns around connecting multiple customers to a single dashboard? Are you only allowing view access, not change? Well, because security concerns, my perception is no different than us going into BC Admin Center and being able to go to Partner Portal. Those customers are connected anyway. So through Partner Portal, you can connect to the Admin Center and see all of the environments, manage all the tenants, and schedule upgrade, change notification recipients. So we have that access anyway. Now, that's limited in scope, right? Excuse me. So the tenant admin dashboard, and when it's ready, I'll demo it. We will have the option to have read-only access, which our help desk is what would primarily be needed. Read-only access to see what version are they on, what version are they scheduled to upgrade to, who are the notification recipients, what are the telemetry alerts that have been occurring on that tenant, how much storage capacity are they using, right? So we'll have all of that single click ready to go for our support team. And if we want to allow admin rights, for instance, that would be to allow changes, to schedule an upgrade, to delete an environment, create a new environment, whatever the case is. So we'll have permissions that we can enforce on the tenant admin dashboard. But I don't see any security concerns fundamentally. We already have that access. We limit it internally. We'll have the exact same thing, read-only or write access, and we'll limit that internally. We're basically just really exposing that information, making it readily accessible to our entire team without having to have admin rights to multiple admin portals and log in and different browser profiles 27 clicks later to find one thing. Is very, very frustrating. So anyway, back to wave 2. We now have the 4 full-time interns. We have 5, but I'll get to that. 4 full-time interns, Jocelyn, David, Ronald, and Franklin, who are just jamming along on Business Central. So they're essentially moving on to year 4 there in my plan. However, we need to consider what happens next. So let's say that the 4 full-time interns transition and become full-time employees, no longer interns. Well, then what is the ERP Center of Excellence at that point? We need to continue to grow that and bring new people on and nurture new talent and have new interns. That takes time, years. So what I've been doing over the last couple of years is sponsoring English Academy scholarship. So every month I sponsor a 10-month English Academy scholarship where the person gets 10 months of intensive English training every single day. So 3 hours a day, 1.5 to 3 hours a day, depending on their program. So I have 15 people who have gone through or are working on that program, and they become potential candidates if they're interested to join us in ERP Center of Excellence. And in order to help them with that, we're creating the Berlin English Academy. So we currently have, I believe, 6 students of that who are getting intermediate to advanced English training, call center prep training, job interview, job skills training in order to apply for the call center job that they will need to get experience. And we are also trying something new. We have brought on Fatima as an intern because she has degrees in information systems. She has work experience, but she only speaks Spanish. So she has received the E4CC Academy scholarship, is learning English, and so this is an experiment we're conducting to see if someone who only speaks Spanish can learn English and simultaneously learn Business Central. It is not a trivial journey. That's a lot of information to try and cram in your brain at once, but she's doing well. She's coming in the office, working with a team, learning Business Central, learning config packages, learning Admin Center, in a mix of Spanish and English. So we have a Spanish tenant that she starts with. She then looks at the English equivalent and tries to do the translation and learn the lingo of the English as well. So that's proceeding. So we're attacking this from multiple angles, and that's how we're planning wave 2 of ERP Center of Excellence. Berlin updates: Fiestas Patronales y Fiesta de San Salvador. Sorry, I tried. That's my Spanish accent. And this is a national holiday where they have 2 days off, Fiestas Patronales, and that is throughout the country, and Fiesta de San Salvador, and everyone comes out. They have a nice party. I don't think I recognize anyone in this photo. That's a lot of people. That is the church, the main church in the square of Berlin. And they bring out horses, beautiful horses, and they ride them around and do some prancing and performances. And then they bring out the classic vehicles. And if you're a fan of old Toyota vehicles, holy cow, you would love El Salvador. Look at this vehicle. This is amazing. They have these old Toyota Land Cruisers that are in various stages of repair or disrepair. This one has been fully restored, mint condition. Look at that paint job, gorgeous. And they bring that out for these festivals. Really, really cool. So it's neat to see that. So they had those festivals. It was raining on and off, but that was what was going on in Berlin. And exciting news. We are starting the planning process for the El Coyolar Christmas Festival 2025, the second annual Christmas festival for El Coyolar. And this is where we invite over 100 kids, young children from the El Coyolar Canton, to join us for a Christmas festival. And this is an area that is, for lack of a better term, very, very poor area. And we're talking tin shacks for a house and plastic siding, maybe it's plastic bags or a tarp, dirt floor, and literal fires on the ground to cook food. I visited there once and it was a humbling experience, let me tell you. So there are over 100 kids in that area that go to a small school there, and that is at the soccer field where David plays. So we decided to sponsor a Christmas event for the kids, and we buy toys for all the kids. We have a Santa, or what they call a clown, who does things like music and games and balloon animals and prizes. And we get piñatas and candy, and we give out lunch and drinks and snacks, and the kids have a good time. So this is a really neat thing we've started to do. Thank you to David and Jocelyn for making it happen last year, and all the volunteers. This year we are actually planning in advance. So we had a call, we started a formal project plan, we have contacts, we have dates, we're going to have a budget, we are going to have sponsors this year because last year I paid for it all, and it's getting kind of expensive. We're going to have better food, more events, activities, bouncy castles, things like that. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I was not able to attend last year because it was last minute, but I am going to plan on being there, going to fly in and hopefully attend this year. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we are starting on that planning process. And this is one of the girls who got a toy, and if that isn't the cutest photo in the world, adorable, right? Totally adorbs, as they say. So very, very cute. So that's why we're doing it. It's a lot of fun. And Q&A. What are you working on? What crazy zany projects are you doing? What trouble are you getting into? Oh, so here's a story. talking about getting into trouble. My developer and I regularly have calls where we're like, how in the world did we not know about this requirement, this complication, this problem, this challenge that absolutely destroys our budget? Man, it is so frustrating that we try to get the requirements, we try to document things, we try to think of problems, and wow. Hello. Ted, good one. I'll get to that. So, my developer and I try to anticipate these problems. Invariably, there is a landmine that we hit where, where we did not see this problem, and we get 80% way down the road, and we realize the API does not have an endpoint or does not have fields that we need. No, we did not map out every API endpoint in advance. No, we did not spend 40 hours doing field level mapping of everything in advance. Like, we didn't do that, right? You would just assume that if a date field is visible on the SaaS platform and they have an API, that you should be able to query that date, right? So anyway, we commiserate about this. Well, I had a call with someone I know, works for another firm, another software application, and he shared a story with me where he's almost done with the project, 40 hours left out of this 120-hour project or whatever. He's like, yes, I see the finish line. We're code complete, doing testing, doing an integration. And he says, hey, customer, here's the data we are sending to the system, and looks good. We're going to proceed with testing. And the customer says, what about this data? And he's like, wait, what? I say, yeah, we need to send this other data from this other module from our ERP system. Well, it's the equivalent of like Business Central dimensions on transactions, kind of like that. And so he's just like, where was this? It's not in the doc, not in the statement of work, not in the requirements. And he didn't think to ask. He forgot to ask this question. He's aware of this module. He's aware of this data and functionality, but he relied upon the lead consultant or whoever who organized the project, wrote things up, and he just started coding. And so it got missed. And so now that 40 hours to complete is looking much less likely. So I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. Like, experienced developer, he knows what he's doing, but this one thing got missed. Goodbye, budget. Goodbye. So Ted says he is going to try to map out CI/CD as an internal PT developer. Holy bananas, Ted. I empathize with you. I would look into CI first. I would put CD to the side for now. Just start on getting a pipeline set up with your source code management, DevOps or GitHub. And neither are trivial in my experience. I don't care what anyone tells you. There's no magic bullet that just makes CI magically occur. So there's a lot of learning. In our case, we use DevOps. We had to learn a lot of PowerShell. We did it old school before we had any add-ons like ALOps or Alpaca. So we learned how to manually do our own pipelines in PowerShell, in DevOps, and cut our teeth that way. Or by we, I mean my developer. Got that working, had our build agents, and got it all working. But then we switched to Cosmo Alpaca. So you're on GitHub with ALGO. Let me know how it goes. I would start with just CI. Just get a pipeline to run. Build against current. Don't get too crazy. Once you figure that out, just slowly increment and figure it out. And figure out how to schedule it. For us, we had to schedule our pipelines because we're going to get 30, 40, 50 projects. And we're doing build against current, next minor, next major, at least twice a month, every 2 weeks or so, just so we see breaking changes. So just start with CI. We've talked about, yes. So you want to deploy to QA automatically. I get that. You could get there, and your environment is a little different than ours. We're dealing with dozens of customers, constantly changing environments that are deleted and recreated. So for us, CD is a really hard challenge because we don't have an environment that sticks around for very long. So we've kind of stepped back from that. But if you control the QA environment and you control your pipelines, you could probably do that. You'll just need to set up the CD access to make that deployment happen. So definitely possible. If you need any help on that, let me know. I don't know the GitHub side of things, but the CI/CD piece and integration with the environment, I may have some notes on, but that's a great project. So anyway, that's a story about landmines and your budget. And that's awesome to hear, Ted, that you're trying to do CI/CD. Go for it. I highly recommend it. And we got code from a partner who does not do CI/CD. They were the ones that had code from 2022 that had not been updated. The customer could not upgrade their environment as a result, and we were asked to take over the code. So there are numerous things that are deprecated in the code, and we're having to clean it up. So CI/CD is the way to go. So QA, quiz. Are you familiar with who this is? I was listening to some music, and for some reason, this name popped into my head. It's like, oh, I haven't listened to this guy in a while. So I started listening to him. And no, he is not a conductor for a symphony orchestra. And I know there's a delay here on the chat, so you may not know who it is, or I may have to wait a while. So this is a very famous musician. And so I was sitting there listening to something. I was like, oh, what about this guy? I want to listen to that music. So I tuned in. And it's turned out, apparently, it's been a long time since I've tuned in. Does this picture look any more familiar? Now he's older, right? Like all of us. He's got a little gray going on now. But that is him. Do you recognize him now? And this one you will absolutely know if you're at all familiar with him. And that is this iconic album cover. Moby Play. So this is one of his most famous, most successful albums. And he had albums before this, but for some reason this one caught on. And if you have ever watched the Bourne movies, Bourne Identity, Bourne Legacy with Matt Damon, you'll be familiar with at least one of his songs. It's on the opening credits and closing credits of the movie. Great, great song. So I have been listening to Moby this week, and really great stuff. So that is what is going on in my world. So get out there, learn some Business Central, do something crazy, improve your security, close your VPN ports, unplug your VPN, and adopt some endpoint protection, find a VPN as a service. And most of all, que tengas un buen fin de semana. Have a great weekend. Adios.